Nerdy Timmy, formerly Comics Conspiracy. And today
we can't decide if we're coming or going.
We don't know. We we're just doing this for S and giggles. That's it. That's all. I believe we are live on all three platforms: Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you like, please drop a like, a share, a comment, stick around for the conversation, add to it.
And if you don't like, give a big thumbs down.
Yeah. We want to know what you don't like. That's for sure. That's for sure. Today we're talking leaders. Who's the leader of this? Who is the leader, the best leader in fandom, so to speak? We got 4 candidates for you today. It is Leonardo, Optimus Prime, Batman, or Captain America. That's the 4 we'll be discussing. If you think somebody else should be added to the conversation, please let us know.
And if you don't think any of them are leaders, what are you doing here?
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. So who wants to go first?
Okay, so
I've got something to say, and I'm a guest here. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're
I'm obviously
fine.
not the leader here, but the one guy that I can't believe you left off the list is hands down the absolute number one leader in all of comics.
I know where you're going.
Reed Richards.
Reed Richards. Tell us why. Tell us why. And then we'll give you a million reasons in an alternate dimension why not.
Well, I think he's one of the first team guys. Like the Fantastic Four obviously kicked off Marvel Comics. DC had their own all-star squad back, for years and years. But I think it's just his super ability is really his brain instead of his stretching. I think he's one of those the smartest guy in the room type guys that whatever your team can come up with, the Fantastic Four will just figure it out. Especially if he's there. If he's not there, their chances are decreased.
I can agree with all of that. But how many times has Johnny walked away, or Ben walked away, or even Sue walked away?
Is he really a leader or is he a patriarch? Because it's more of a familial connection.
Legitimate, but a good patriarch is a good leader as well, right? They're expected to, that's the alpha male, like a pride of lions. He's the boss, or the alpha gorilla.
But my point is that he's a leader by not by choice necessarily, by assignment of who he was here first in the structure. Marrying Sue, which begat him Johnny, and you could argue that he's leading Ben because of who they are and what their initial mission was and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of it, it's just, yes, I get he's a leader. I'm not saying he's not, but it's just kind of different than these other people that are either chosen or happened into the position of being a leader.
Well, but the question wasn't who is the best non-selected leader.
Yeah, well, we're modifying it.
You're the leader.
I thought you were going to say Hawkeye, West Coast Avengers.
I was going to bring him up next, but I'll let you guys chat for a bit.
Amazing. For me, no. Reed wasn't even on my list.
Are you a Fantastic Four fan?
I'm not, to be honest. I'm really not. I think they hit their stride way before I was born, and even when I was growing up, it was all Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman all the time, right? That's.
And I'm older than you, and so is Andrew, but Andrew was big into the Fantastic Four, as I recall. But I had the similar mindset as you, in that they just seemed very mothball and very, very old school, they are original superhero team. So, but it had that even without knowing that as a kid, just, looking at them as another option on the shelf in the corner store to buy as a title, pre-comic book stores, like it was not one that I opted for. It wasn't, and I've said this before, I think on our previous iteration of Comics Conspiracy, I never got into them at all. I had some of their stuff just as crossover issues or issues that were given to me in one way or another, but I never got into them until Art Adams' run of the new Fantastic Four, when it was Hulk, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Ghost Rider. And not only was it a fun story, but it really turned me on to Art Adams' drawings, and I really appreciated his detail and whatnot. And then I still wouldn't say that I was ever hardcore into them, but it at least brought me into their storyline, their title.
I remember reading them the most when, I guess it was in the 90s at some point, Marvel Heroes Reborn, and it focused a lot on Franklin Richards and carrying this universe around. I know. Yeah. And Hulk was drawn really weird. He had like this big long hair. I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, they really pushed the mullet in the 90s. Superman had one, Hulk had one, Wolverine had variances of it.
Yeah, okay. So just to address this thing, okay. One thing I must acquiesce to here is that if that's all the Fantastic Four comics are, and like that was the era you were growing up, and I was in the same era with Crunk, and those Fantastic Four comics were not good. And they mothballed is right. But when I was a kid, like 9 or 10 years old, one of the first comics I got, my old man picked me up off the spinner rack and brought it home. It wasn't even mine, it was my brother's, but I've read it a million times. And it was the part of the John Byrne run that he did in the early to mid 80s, just before he jumped to DC, when he'd been doing this comic for 4 or 5 years after his X-Men run. So if you've never read the really good stuff, then all right, fair enough. I highly recommend that entire run to anybody, though. It's a classic John Byrne.
I'll have to check it out. Good.
I particularly appreciated the sexism in the Fantastic Four titles.
What was your favorite part, Camera Chris?
The belittling of Sue Richards and the constant sexist terms that they would use, and the very clear writing from Stan and his team. That was a sign of the times. It's just really fun to go back and read some of those issues. So I don't know how well the John Byrne run that you have extolled the virtues of, I don't know how well it would hold up, but...
Well, if you like his sexy She-Hulk run, that was where he brought her in on the team.
I didn't.
I did. So yeah, if you're into your sexy She-Hulk, well, if you're not, that's fine. But if you are, check it out.
Okay, so you've given us Reed as a possible. So with the selection of who Jordan put forth, we had it kind of covering certain aspects of the geek genre. We had Optimus Prime, Captain America, Leonardo from the Ninja Turtles, and Batman as the arguable leader of the Justice League. Not full-time, but off and on.
Okay, well, I have a bit of a problem with the Batman scenario. And it's just what you just mentioned is the fact that who is there a real leader to the whole team?
That's what I've been saying.
Well, if you look it up, they have given the mantle of leader to various people over the run of the Justice League. So that's why I said arguably, but also occasionally, because he wasn't, even if you want to argue he was the leader or not, whichever side you fall on, he wasn't 100% the full-time leader. It wasn't like the X-Men where you had Cyclops and then there was a clear cut when they inserted Aurora as the leader for a period, and then she gave it up and was like, screw this shit. But arguably, like they've said Superman has been for a time. They even said Cyborg was for a period of time. There was a couple of people that that I didn't even recognize, so it must have been more recent than I would have been reading any JLA issues. I mean, but he's the one that we're focusing on as far as, who do you think is the better leader?
Okay, well, I agree with all of that. You're right, they rotated. When I was a kid, the first JLA comic I got, Aquaman was the team leader, and it was all a bunch of B-level guys. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. It sucked. But the thing that
they were probably in contract disputes.
Probably. Nice. Didn't want to share the characters or whatever, but I just think that the Justice League works together as a team, much like the way that Cito Gaston managed the 93 Jays, which was just a team of professionals. They knew what their jobs were. There's not so much you go here and do that, directing people around.
I have to let's take Batman out of the Justice League equation. Let's look at his own Bat family himself. Like, Dick Grayson doesn't respect him, right?
But he's a dick.
Yeah, well, by name and birthright, always trying to one up Batman. I don't see that. I mean, you do see that in others, but I also present to you Jason Todd, the good leadership there, Bruce. He's known as a lone wolf, and then I would also like to submit to the court Barbara Gordon. How's that wheelchair doing?
Working out kind of well for her, actually.
Actually, it is, but I think she'd prefer to be running across rooftops and whatnot. That's why I don't think Batman is he is phenomenal, but leader, I don't know. Like, contingencies on all his friends to kill them, right? And then what's your contingency? Well, I have all of you, except you already have the plans to kill them all. It's just, I don't know. I don't see the leadership in him. I see plans. I don't see leader.
If you have a nuclear device, you need a kill switch. That's my argument for why Batman has that. Like, you can't have these weapons running around and not have the ability to go, hey, wait a minute, we need to turn that off. Like, something's gone wrong. Superman's been dipping into the red kryptonite a little too hard.
Or some psychic comes in and controls Green Lantern and starts blowing up nuclear power plants. Like, you got to have something to do. You can't just call Superman.
Yeah, in my opinion, that just solidifies him as the greatest leader of all time, because he's thought through every possible problem and contingency and covered all the bases. And as you know, in that group that we're in on Facebook, that has deteriorated into a versus group, it's basically they've made it a prep time group. It's Batman versus anybody they can think of, with or without prep time. So Batman doing the prep work, he can, cover off the bases of taking down anybody, essentially. That's the way they pit him.
Is that a great leader, or is that just a great tactician?
Right, but
that's my point.
Aren't all great generals, which are leaders? They're leaders of the entire armed forces. Aren't they there because they are great tacticians? Isn't that what makes a great leader?
Well, no, because there's some generals that are great tacticians, but their men fucking hate them, and they don't treat the men right, and they don't, and so they lose the confidence of their men. It's happened numerous times, and so that's the leadership. And I would say also Batman, he is a little bit mistrusted.
Why is Napoleon not on our list?
Because he's not fictional.
We're gonna go there, are we? You're gonna suddenly claim that Napoleon was a real dude?
God, here we go.
Okay, so where do we stand? All right, what's your opinion? Sorry, on Optimus Prime as a leader.
I just want to say one more thing. I don't know if you guys ever read Batman and the Outsiders, but I thought he was quite good on that team. He had a falling out with the Justice League, and that was early '80s.
Yeah, you and I talked about that the other day.
Yeah, so I just think I still think Superman's the de facto leader of the Justice League. That's my opinion. Superman.
So
Anyway.
for Optimus, I think he's my number one guy on this list, to be honest. Yeah.
Why?
Why? The respect he commands, and he's got all the other qualities of everybody else, like of the tactician style. He's the first into battle, but when he says Autobots roll out, you don't hear a peep. They roll out. Right? When he says go left, they go left. When he says go right, they go right. Fly high, they fly high. No one questions, no one argues. The Autobots have their complete 100% trust in Optimus Prime. And that's why he's my number one guy for this list.
Right, but here's the problem there. Have you seen the other Autobots?
I don't think that matters.
It does, because if you have zero options, then even a viable option, a somewhat viable option, seems like a great one, right? Isn't it? In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So when you put it into perspective of the other Autobots, yeah, they're diligent little machines doing what they're told, but that is their role. They're not really given much dynamicism beyond that. Is that even a word?
Dynamicism.
Yeah, okay. They haven't written them with the character or interest or spine to, like, I mean, essentially what it comes down to, it's like Transformers and G.I. Joe came out around the same time, and they were designed to sell toys. So,
yes.
So with that perspective, you have to temper, especially your position that he's the greatest, because what you're looking at is you're looking at a toy line that was designed with two main characters, a good guy and a bad guy, and then they had all these other elements added on to accentuate those two main characters. And if you looked at them when they first came out, they were also probably, and I'm just going off of memory here, they were the most expensive of the line of original run G1 Transformer characters, was Megatron and Optimus Prime. All the other ones were a more basic, they didn't have multiple components the same way that Megatron and Optimus Prime did. So you're looking at them through today's now a vast history of, they became comic books, they've had movies, they've expanded in multiple ways and backstories and whatnot. But originally, when you're looking at it, they were created as a means to sell toys. And it was same with G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was G.I. Joe, which was an advanced version of a 60s doll created to be playable figures, which were the style of time in the 80s, versus Cobra. And Cobra was now headed up by Cobra Commander. He embodied Cobra. So again, it was still this one guy versus G.I. Joe, which was a namesake that encompassed all the rest of them. So then they kept adding every season, every year, they kept adding more and more toys, but it was still an expansion of those two.
Of one guy doing one thing really well, is like pretty much, right? Just to add the toy line. Like, this guy shovels the snow outside the base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Codename Shoveler.
Right? Like, buy this toy.
Yep.
Shovel sold separately.
Yep.
But take away that, right? Because it's good points. But what about his character and his spirit, right? He has a lot of those great qualities for leadership, regardless of, the Autobots, aren't very powerful, right? I mean, I could go into the Beast Wars, but that might be a little too far forward for you guys, right? I don't know if you ever watched that show. Where Optimus was the gorilla, right? You had Rhinox and Cheetor, and he was still the same character in every reiteration, rather than just rather than Gru leading a bunch of little minions is kind of how you described it, right? But I do want to give the Autobots a little more credit, right, than that, because I want to. And I think there's backup, right? That's what it comes out to, because I want to. But, Bumblebee is a little bit more than just a Volkswagen Beetle.
No, they're all good soldiers, and that's the thing. Right? They got screwed in the transfer. Like, they're soldiers, but like, take your best infantry platoon on the ground and send in a couple of jets. It's like, and so the flying abilities, the Decepticons had a massive tactical advantage over them. And so I just think it made them scarier, right? It made them like a real opposition. They could get away every time too, which helps. I can't sell all the Autobots. They were good soldiers too.
The comparison to the G.I. Joe platform as well is you've got your leader, and there's always a second nipping at his heels, right? So you've got Starscream always trying to get at Megatron and trying to underhand him and trying to supplant his position, whereas G.I. Joe, you always had Destro or even Major Blood to a certain degree. They had these formulas down pat, and we bought into them hook, line, and sinker, because there isn't a kid mine or Andrew's age or Hank's age that didn't cry when Optimus Prime died in the original Transformers.
Brutal, right? Brutal. Yeah. Like I remember watching it and whatnot. I had, going back to the G.I. Joe, I had this G.I. Joe base. Now I don't know.
And sorry. I really don't remember where you are. But again, Duke died too. It's like they had the formula for both.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They changed it. They were gonna kill Duke, but then after they saw what happened with Optimus Prime, they were like, and so they ended in this awkward scene where it's like, oh, Duke's alive.
Yeah, but I mean, he took a snake spear to the heart.
Yeah, well, he wasn't supposed to live. They just crowbarred that in at the end.
Like, let's not do this again.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just, again,
no, you're fine.
Making the comparisons about their formula that they very clearly had.
I'm trying to remember what this base was, but if I remember correctly, there was a lever, and it became like a dome over top of this G.I. Joe base. I'm trying to remember it, but yeah. I just remember playing with that when I was a kid.
Are you talking about the big Cobra Terrordrome?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yeah. Yeah, I say Joe because it's part of the line, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Found that at a garage sale and played the shit out of it. Beat the crap out of it. I bet you it would have been, it's probably worth money now. Should have. Take care of your stuff, kids. It's worth money someday.
Play the hell out of it, kids.
Okay, so let's move on to Leonardo. I want to save Cap for last.
Yep. I think Hank's got some stuff to say about Leonardo. He was kind of big into Ninja Turtles there for a while, weren't you?
Right. Still am. I still play a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role-playing game right now from Palladium Role-Playing. Yeah, that's
no way. Yeah, they just are releasing another Kickstarter of that. I
heard they're trying to bring it back. And I've actually the old manual from like the 80s. But so what I would say about Leonardo, out of all these ones, he's the most natural-born leader for his role. And you could say that they're all natural leaders, but the Optimus Prime was made, and he's bigger and stronger than the rest of the team, like Frank said. And Captain America has all these amazing leadership qualities, and he's been thrust into, and everyone likes him. But he's hanging out with guys like Thor and Iron Man, and they could actually mostly blow him away if they wanted to. But Leonardo is unique in that out of all of his, the other three brothers, he's the smartest one on the team. and he's equally as physically capable as the rest of them, but he's also the most responsible one on the team. So, like, the other one, Donatello does machines, as the cartoon would tell you, and yeah, he tinkers with that stuff. So he's smart, I get. And then Leonardo's got all the moves, but hey, dudes, he's the one that always Bunga wants to eat some pizza.
Yeah.
And Raphael is like the Wolverine of the team, so he's not really reliable in any clutch situations, and so it all comes down to Leonardo. And I think Leonardo's the guy, and he's had to step up to that job, but he was born for it. That's his natural role with his brothers. And since they're all twins or whatever, there's not one's older than the other. He's just the natural one that rose to the top of that position. He's the only one that can do it. I'm done.
I mean, that was wrapped up in a neat little bow. I want to try and pick it apart, but he was also one of my. Well, I mean, they're pretty good candidates all around. But Leonardo, I want to try and pick it apart because he's not my pick. How many times has he let Raph go? But maybe that's part of the whole thing. Raph needs to be on his own for a bit to calm down, right?
Yes. What, you force him to stay?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Right? You're not forcing him to stay because it's just not going to go well for anybody. So yeah, go blow off your steam and go do your thing. What about you, Camera Chris? What do you got?
Ninja Turtles was never my big thing. I mean, I've got enough background on them, so I agree with, everything that you guys are saying. So I don't have anything to really rebuke it, though. So, I mean, I agree. Like, it's very clear the way they've written the characters, and even if you look at the interpretation to the cartoons, it's very clear that they even stayed true to certain character traits and aspects in the cartoons so that it followed what Andrew and what you were saying. So,
Mr.
yeah.
Truck to you.
What's that?
Mr. Truck to you.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I have nothing to rebuke that. He wouldn't be my pick, but just because it wasn't really my my choice to collect and read, so I don't really have that attachment.
Yeah, actually, if you didn't read the issues or whatever, it's like you guys saying, "Wow, Reed Richards kind of sucked when I was around." Like, yeah, fair enough.
And but at least I did get into the Fantastic Four for a good period of time afterwards. So yeah, I didn't necessarily read the John Byrne stuff back in the day. I think I've read some random issues, and I actually have some random issues of the older FF stuff that I acquired over the years that I've read. So I've read here and there a bunch of the older stuff. And again, it didn't grab me the same way that I could pick up a Captain America issue at any point throughout the Captain America run and just be totally into it, or Punisher, or Spider-Man, or to a lesser extent an X-Men issue, depending on who the X-Men were at the time. So, it didn't grab me the same way that those ones do.
And talk about a company that was, pushing out toy after toy after toy. I mean, I think this is the grandfather of it, is it not? Like, holy crap! Once they got on TV, they did not stop. They did not stop.
But when even in the early 80s when G.I. Joe and Transformers were pumping out new lines every season, every year, like crazy, we did not have the same influx of superhero toys. We ended up getting Secret Wars came along, and then I believe, and I might be wrong, I believe Secret Wars came first, and then Superpowers came like within the year. So they were obviously both working on them. Superpowers being the DC version. they were obviously both working on them, because everything that DC and Marvel did, they did in either lockstep or one right after the other. And even when we've talked about it before. Sorry, excuse me. You look at the characters. You look at Thanos versus Darkseid. You look at Deadshot versus Deadpool. Those kinds of things. Like, I mean, there are very clear
copying.
Lifts, I was going to call them, or thievery, whatever. But they also shared and traded writers and artists, right? Like, the one would leave and go to the other company, and then, something would happen over there, and then they'd come back. So obviously you're going to have some crossovers, if not synergy, in the creation and development. But sorry to backtrack, I digress. My point was, we did not have, like you did, coming, almost a decade after us, you had the onslaught in the late 80s and 90s of superhero stuff, because the Spider-Man cartoon was big, the Batman cartoon was big. So that, and right after the Tim Burton Batman movies, that essentially opened up the floodgates, where you saw the not only equivalent but takeover.
Oh, this is profitable. Right?
Yeah.
That's yeah.
And you saw G.I. Joe get pushed aside. You saw Transformers get pushed aside for all of these superhero properties that had been intellectual properties for decades. And they were content, it seemed, with mostly pumping out the comics to sell. And then they realized, and again, hats off to probably George Lucas for realizing what merchandising to kids was all about. Him taking the deal to do Star Wars and taking it basically as a back end deal on the merch. And
you're right, but I don't think he knew either. I think he was just doing a deal. Like, I think he just got lucky because Star Wars was such a phenomenon. The toys didn't sell the movie. The movie sold the toys. And then the toys, the biggest movie ever. And so I think Lucas was as flabbergasted as everyone else. That wasn't it was a wise move in retrospect. I think he was just trying to make a few bucks off Hasbro at the time. Like, hey, because they were making Battlestar Galactica, the G.I. Joe figures, like, just, crappy figures. So I don't think anybody saw that one coming.
I used to own, going to toys, I used to own a Captain Picard Star Wars action figure. I'm like, I'm just thinking about it right now. I'm like, what did he do? He sat down the most of the time.
I think he just hurt a lot of people's feelings because you said a Captain Picard Star Wars action figure.
Yeah, you caught that, eh?
I was already laughing at Captain Picard already.
I still have a Picard.
You still got it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did I have a Worf? I can't remember. I mean, I had the 90s X-Men. I'm enjoying 97, by the way. It's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad. So going back to Turtles real quick, there's a fan theory that's I don't know when it came around. I guess it was updated this week. But I heard this a while ago. So each of the Turtles got their weapons. Now, I don't know if this is canon or not, or I believe it's just a fan theory, but the reason why Raphael has the size is because it's the most defensive weapon, and that's why he was given the size to calm down his aggression. And Michelangelo was given the nunchucks because it takes a lot of concentration to work the nunchucks. And for somebody who is as ADD as Michelangelo, he needs to work on his concentration, right? And then Donatello got a stick because all he does is technology. So it's like, learn to live without it. And then Leonardo got the katanas because it is the deadliest weapon for them, and is to symbolize his leadership.
And he would have the strength of mind to use it justly or whatever.
Exactly, right? Yeah, because he could just go around killing everything, right?
That's interesting. I wonder how that correlates to each of their assigned artistic names.
That's a good question, actually. That's a really good question. Why? Yeah. why they got their names.
Leonardo, I'm a little bit versed in art. So Leonardo da Vinci would have been the smartest one, and then Michelangelo, possibly the most talented. His sculptures and as well as he didn't even like painting that much. He thought it was second rate. He liked sculpting better. David and stuff, right? And so, Raphael and Donatello, I don't know as much about, but Raphael used to draw lots of fat chicks, so maybe that's passion. And no, honestly, for real, like it was that time of like big booty.
Well, that's what you wanted back in the day, right?
So I think that would be a sign of passion. And then, Donatello, I don't know them, but I think he was very good technically. They were all good technically, but that him I don't. And I don't know if that theory is true. That's beautiful, man. It should be. I don't know if that's canon, but I've never read that anywhere.
Yeah,
thought about that. That should be canon.
Absolutely. Like you could do a rehashing of the origin story. You know, you don't have to go through it beat by beat, but like just a flashback of Splinter handing them their weapons for the first time.
Little idiots.
This is why you're this. This is why you're that. Right. So that's Leonardo, and then last but not least, we have
my guy Cap.
Is your guy Cap? Who is he? Your pick? Is this your guy?
Yeah, but I have to admit that it's totally biased. I mean, I out of everything I've read in comics over the years, I've read the most Captain America and Avengers out of any. Like, if you total the amount of time spent in any issues that I've read, Cap is probably my guy.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I want to pick him apart, and the only two words I have for it is Civil War. Is the crumbling of the Avengers in Civil War, and that's what I have to say. He's not the best leader in fandom. It's tough, but he definitely failed the Avengers by ripping them apart. Now, he didn't necessarily rip them apart, but he didn't help bring them together. That makes sense? It was Team Cap versus... What's that?
He brought half of them together, didn't
he? Yeah, right? He brought half of them together. The other half, not so much.
Well, the one thing I will say about Cap, and I've read a lot of different comics from a lot of different decades, and the one thing that all the Avengers talk about, and I don't mean that that's what they talk about all the time, but they all talk about how Captain America is the guy for the job. And he's the guy. Even to the point where Thor's like, I'll listen to him, and Iron Man, and I think they did a decent job in the movie, kind of like letting him take the lead to a good degree. But in the comics, they talk about it all the time. Even to the point where the last thing I'll say is I used to read a lot of West Coast Avengers comics. I think I collected that one to like 90. And the whole time, Hawkeye was the leader. That's why Cameron Chris there was bringing that up earlier. He thought I was going to go with Hawkeye off the bat, but I was saving that for the Cap section. But
I just thought you were going to because it's funny.
Oh no, it is funny, and nobody expects Hawkeye to be but he's like it's them probably ripping off Batman to some degree and putting a non-super guy. Like Cap is pretty much the least of the Avengers in terms of raw power. Right?
So with Hawkeye on screen, Hawkeye has never lost a fight.
Is it?
Movies? In the movies, Hawkeye is never lost a fight.
That's actually not true.
What do you mean?
He lost against Vision. If it wasn't for Wanda, he would have been...
When did he lose against Vision?
When he went to pick up Wanda from the
floor.
Yeah, and it was he ended up pulling out his little expandable baton, and he tried to fight Vision, and Vision ends up phasing through, and he grabs him in a chokehold, and then it's Wanda that saves his ass.
Yeah, but that's in the fight. Who won that fight?
Wanda.
Wanda.
What team was she on?
Right, but you didn't say team. You said he has an individual.
Whatever team Hawkeye is on has won the fight
that's a little revisionist.
in the moment.
Well, I would also say that even if he got saved, like Hawkeye walked away from that one, and
he still wins.
So I wouldn't say that he won, but I would say he didn't lose that fight. That's like if some guy picks me up like this and he's about to like punch me out, and then he gets punched out. I wasn't punched out yet. I didn't lose.
Definitely did not lose. And Hawkeye was not in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost in Infinity War. Just a neat little thing. So
he lost his family.
Everyone lost with the snap. But the last thing about Hawkeye, the whole run when he was the leader, he just used to say about how he learned how to fight from Captain America, and Captain America was his inspiration. And so it was just a big Cap fest, love fest over there. And so I'm not putting Hawkeye into the conversation. Let me get that clear.
I remember I bought West Coast Avengers #1 when it came out. I bought it off of the spinning racket at a convenience store near our house called Open Door that is no longer in existence. But I remember picking that up and I'm like, oh, they're making a new Avengers team for California.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Who's on that team?
It was
Hawkeye.
Wanda, Hawkeye, Vision, Wonder Man. What's her name? Tigra. Yeah. Who else? There was at least one other.
Wasp. Iron Man was there from day one.
Yeah. Centurion Iron Man, though, specifically. It was James Rhodes.
No, at the beginning, it was Tony.
Was it?
Might have been the beginning.
No, I think it was
after being drunk.
You're right, and I think Rhodey was on the full Avengers team, and then it was Tony over there. But then they ended up flipping it because they were like, whatever.
And then the Thing joined up there for like 15 episodes because they needed some more star power on the team. And then when they had enough star power, they brought Moon Knight on the team. But anyway, this was not good leaders the whole time. Back to Cap. Where does Cap play in here?
He's obviously a top contender. He is the leader of the Avengers.
What I remember reading and doesn't really get spoken about, and I remember reading this a long time ago, is that not only like the super soldier serum enhanced obviously Cap to peak physical human capabilities. So he and Wolverine are essentially the best human you can possibly become physically. But what I remember them saying, and I don't really hear it wasn't expressed in the movies, obviously, but it hasn't really been talked about long term, is that it also enhanced his intelligence so that he's actually, and that's why he's able to master martial arts the way that he has and become the world's greatest fighter, is that he's also a brilliant tactician. He's super smart. And I remember them saying this, he's almost on par intelligence wise with Tony Stark and Reed Richards without all of the intricate technical aspects. Like he can't obviously build the stuff that Reed builds or that Tony builds, but that when it comes down to being able to quickly read something and comprehend it and everything like that, like he is on par with them in that realm.
I think that's an interesting take, and probably one of the ways that they slowly like power up heroes all the time by adding new powers.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I don't recall it being a long-term thing. I remember, and that could be something where a writer threw it in, and then it never really took off, never had legs, so they just let it slide when new writers took over. And I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember what era so that I could go back and look that up, because it's obviously in my collection. Because I remember going, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Like I said, I think it's an interesting thing, and I don't mind when people do that, but I don't like it when it keeps snowballing and adding on, and also the steroids
Wolverine
make
is a good. Wolverine's a good example of that. Like, I mean, or
Yes.
or Doctor Strange. They just become so OP.
Superman.
They're not gonna. I was gonna say no one's gonna mention him. No, no
Yeah,
one.
Superman's the obvious one, yes.
A
Or
leap
Hulk.
over
Hulk
tall
even.
buildings. Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Hulk's so powerful that they had to launch him into space.
So good.
We can't even have him in the equation of this
Yeah,
battle
we
that
don't.
we're about to have with each other.
This might be slightly off topic, but do you think continuity even matters that much in comics anymore?
Oh,
I almost
anymore? No.
feel like now just do a 6-issue run or 8 issues. It's just like mini series. It can be within the series. It could be still issue 551. But tell me 6-issue story, and like it kind of doesn't matter if it's what if or if it's like what the hell is canon anymore after almost 85 years or whatever.
It's true. There is no canon. Actually, on Marcus's podcast, I was just listening to one of their more recent episodes, and they were talking about what is canon and why does it exist. Right? It was neat.
Arguably, that's why they came up with the whole multiverse angle in 616 versus, Ultimate and all this kind of bullshit. And then, they had so many things built up, and they said, well, but now we want to do this. And they're like, well, but we're going to piss off these people, and we still want them to be kind of buying our stuff. So I truly believe that that's why they've gone that route.
Well, I almost don't think you need to brand it that much. I think the comics audience has seen enough movie reboots and comic reboots that if I started off with X-Men issue 561 and it was like Magneto being like, I've never met this Charles Xavier guy, but I'm going to find out what he's all about. Like, this guy's talking about mutants on TV. And then you could start there and people would instantly know where you are on the story. Do you know what I mean? And it might be my take on how it went down, but could be new. But does it have to be? It has to follow the movie chronology. It has to follow the comic books. It has to follow the cartoon. Yeah, it's just too complicated. Anyway, back to the leader. Did we think of pick yet? Captain America.
Are we picking a winner? Is that the desired
I don't know.
goal
What's
here?
the format here? It's the format here.
We don't really have a format. We should get a format, I guess. I mean, we used to do thumbs up, thumbs down, right?
But then Apple destroyed that and made mine more powerful.
Right? So we can't do that anymore. It's not fair because his thumbs up just stays up, and therefore Cap wins every time.
I get double thumbs.
Yeah, he gets 2 votes for the one. Me and Paul were just trying to tie the vote every time.
Who?
But we never agreed. So okay, rank them. That's what we can do. We can do a points thing.
Okay. We got 4 of them, right?
Yeah.
Optimus, Leonardo, Captain America, and Batman.
So number 1 gets 4 points. Is that right?
Correct.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me rank these guys. Who wants to go first?
Give me a second. I gotta think about it.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'll try and be as unbiased as possible. And I'm looking at this purely from my knowledge and experience of where they've come from, where they've gone. I would say Cap first, Leonardo second, Batman third, and Optimus last. And I'm trying to encompass all the different genres and takes of canon, because when you incorporate the movies into it as well, you got to look at what was really done leadership-wise in the movies. And they very clearly tried to make Batman the leader and the form, the creator of the Justice League in those horrible movies, in the extended, unbelievably boring, dragging me through the mud Snyder cut. But so when you look at Optimus Prime in the realm of the totality of comic books, cartoons, and movies, in the movies, he's the fucking worst. And Batman as well. How much destruction? Because, then you've got Cap with Civil War. They even went the Civil War angle, and the purpose is they've caused too much damage. And their damage was just blowing up a portion of a building that set off the, obviously they did more damage in the other movies, but that was enough to set off the regulation from Ross to say, we need to do something about you clowns. Whereas Batman and Superman themselves, the two biggest heroes in the DC universe, destroyed so much stuff. They destroyed a small town. They destroyed an entire metropolis, the metropolis. How much damage has Batman allowed to happen or been part of in Gotham? Like, Gotham has been rebuilt how many goddamn times? And then you factor in again, I'm using this.
It's still in ruins.
Yes. And I'm using this same simile for Optimus Prime, because look at all the damage in these, like the entire movie genre of the Transformers movies.
The pyramids were old enough. They had to go. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
They had their time here.
Yeah.
Okay, don't let Michael Bay and Zack Snyder ruin your...
But that's not what all I'm saying is I have to include that into my decision-making process. So that's why I'm going Cap, Leonardo, Batman, Optimus in that descending order.
All right, keep track of that. Because I didn't. We have Chris's picks. Okay, so my order is... I'm sticking with my boy Optimus. I'm sticking with him. When he speaks, people listen.
That's because it's Peter Cullen's voice. That's the only reason.
Well, guess what? It's iconic. We had Tim Conroy as Batman, and that's a pretty good voice too. Just because Peter Cullen does Optimus all the time, every time. That's not. You could have. You could add Kevin.
No, let's put it into perspective. Would Darth Vader be as menacing if he was voiced by
Tobey Maguire? That would be amazing. No, Gilbert Godfrey.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Gilbert. I said Optimus. I gotta go Leonardo. I go Cap, then I go Batman.
And Crunk, what was yours in order? Captain America's number
Cap,
1?
Leonardo, Batman, Optimus.
The Civil War blemish is big. It is big.
And I don't see it the same way, but yes, I get your perspective.
Yeah.
Just adding the tallies, I already know. I'm the only one that knows the final score.
That's it. Well, yeah, now he's going to choose his score based on...
And math is definitely your strong suit.
I wrote mine down first.
Oh, did you?
I started talking, yeah, and so now I was going to give you the last word on this. But I'm like, so now I've just been tallying.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, wait. Let's predict what he's going to choose.
Fair enough.
His number 1... let's go number 4. Yeah, okay. A number 4 pick.
Number 4 pick, he's going to say Optimus.
I think he's saying Batman for number 4.
Jordan for the win, because as I've already said, I don't think Batman is the leader of the Justice League. I think Superman is.
I don't think they have a leader. They're a democratic league. They vote on most of their stuff.
So that, exactly. So
you could also argue Wonder Woman is the leader of the Justice League, if you know,
been, according to
right? Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that I can't pick him as the best leader if he's only up. Anyway, so my third choice.
Third choice. What you said? Leo was his first. Third choice is going to be Optimus. Number 2 will be Cap for you.
Okay, so you're right again, Optimus Prime. is my next one up because he keeps fucking dying. Like, in the movies, in the shows, and like he's dead half the time. I'm like, come on, man! Like this is not good leadership skills.
That's fair.
It's hard to lead when you're dead.
I will lead you from the grave. That was my best, Peter.
Just like him.
Thank you.
That was good, actually. I'll give you that.
It's mostly because of the distortion when you lean right in.
Well, yeah, I had to use it to my advantage.
Roll them out. All right, so and then I missed your last guess. Number 1 and 2.
Leonardo and Cap, in that order, 1 and 2.
Jordan, same thing.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, you guys are right again. I guess my poker face not that good, and I would say Leonardo is in the same sort of position of Optimus Prime. He's got to keep his team alive more. They're constantly fighting for survival, whereas the Avengers are often coming in as a powerhouse to solve a problem. These other guys are usually like back on their toes and running away half the time. Everyone retreats.
It's in the name, right? Yeah. They're the Avengers.
Yeah, they're coming to fix the problems
they're
here.
Not the Prevengers.
And so said that in the movie.
Like if it's, Leonardo, for a small team, he might be the best. You know what I mean? But Captain America, and with his highly touted respect all throughout the Marvel Universe, I'm going to have to say, as compared to a small scale of Leonardo, compared to like a internationally respected superhero.
That's an interesting point. You look at the respect Cap gets universally, like they know him across the universe.
That's very true.
To the point that Vance Astro carries his shield in the distant future as part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and people know what that shield is.
So he's the most famous. I think I'm going to have to give it to him. So the ranking is Captain America 1 with 10 points, Leonardo with 9, Optimus Prime with 7, and he's not the leader though. That's fine.
How many points did he get? 6?
What's that?
How many points 4. Did Batman get? 4. Ooh, 4. I missed that. Well, I guess he didn't have enough prep time.
Yep.
Otherwise, he would have taken Crunk and I out before the podcast.
Yeah, there would have been no competition. Well, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, Cap is a solid argument. What about someone like Picard or Kirk? Where would you just for the last little bit?
Oh, we've had this argument over the.
Have you? It's
not really an argument because I think we both agree.
So Picard.
We've had this discussion.
So it's Picard?
Picard is a diplomat.
Okay.
Kirk is a leader.
I love Picard.
Yeah.
But he's not Captain Kirk.
But you're supposed to because he's a diplomat.
He doesn't even have swashbuckling boots.
No, he doesn't. And hold on. When in any fighting situation would you ever take Picard over Kirk? Like head to head in almost anything. Other picking up chicks, fist fight, space battles. Okay, diplomacy. I'm giving that to Picard. Being polite to people.
Yeah.
Klingons, Kirk.
So would you rank Kirk above any other of your picks?
As far as leadership?
Yeah.
All of these four.
Not over Cap. Not a chance.
I would.
Interesting.
Cap never got the Enterprise blown up or stolen.
He could have if he wanted to.
Cap lets lots of other things happen. Don't worry. He's not infallible either. But they both are intergalactically renowned. And Kirk isn't even a super soldier. He doesn't even have super friends. He does a shit.
How many green people has Captain America had sex with? That's the tiebreaker. Well, I know of She-Hulk, and that's about it.
And he didn't have to give them Romulan ale to get them there.
Makes it more fun when you're there.
That's funny. That's funny.
No, so like so when you compare, like, Next Generation was great, and it was good for when it came out, and it really, I gotta say, it was a surprise, because old fans like our parents, our fathers, they were anxious about it, but trepidatious. We were like, we didn't care because it wasn't Star Wars. And
Right.
But it proved out to be something really good, and was able to create new characters in an existing environment, in an existing universe, something that nobody seems to want to do anymore. And it brought a new flavor to a 30-year-old intellectual property.
Okay, can I interject here? And exactly, in my opinion, what they did was they replaced sex and violence and plot with good acting, sex, violence, and plot with good acting, good special effects, and still plot, which was the heart of the Gene Roddenberry vision. It was like good plots, like Twilight Zone, the Rod Serling. Like, the stories were good, and that's why.
And that's the thing is you can argue, or at least I would, that Next Generation was more sci-fi than Star Wars or the original Star Trek ever was, because it put the science in the fiction and the fiction in the science, and it was more about, like you said, plot and telling a good story, developing the characters over, what was it, 7 seasons? And did an amazing job of carrying it all the way through to a really, what's the word? A really, I guess the only thing I can say is good. A really good payoff and closure with that ending, and wrapping it up where they started with Q. And the first episodes were the Farpoint, the 2-parter Farpoint, and they ended it with the same sort of, not only same sort of storyline, but with Q at the heart of the story. So they wrapped it all up in a nice bow, and the payoff was there. It was satisfying, and they saw through the development of these characters, and even with the coming and going of certain actors, they saw through. They changed the perspectives of, what they thought they should do with characters like Worf, for instance, and where they
Wesley.
Yeah, like, and having Geordi on the bridge. We've discussed this before. Having Geordi on the bridge as the the Mr. Scott rule. No, he's an engineer. He should be in engineering. Right? Like, maybe he'll make an appearance on the bridge when they're in times of certain turmoil and need, but he's an engineer. He should be in engineering. So they heard, they listened to the fans, and they still, and I always appreciate when something big like this can listen to the fans and adapt and evolve without making it seem obvious.
Naturally doing it, right?
And without making it look like they're paying fan service.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got so many things these days where they're just like, and oh my God, the new Doctor Who trailer dropped, and God, a bigger piece of shit. I can't even. Like, they're even. I don't even. No, you know what?
It's at the top of my list of things not to watch or care about.
Yep.
I mean, if I cared enough to make a list like that, that's where I'd put it.
Yes. But anyways, where I was going with Star Trek is you actually had. You could have had so many more scenes like the original Star Trek, where you had some ass kicking, some galactic battles, and some intensity. And because you had the original Star Trek that evolved, so we saw movies with bigger budgets, and they had these better special effects that they were able to budget for. So we were expecting more. And then as technology got more readily available and less expensive, so they were able to do certain things in the Next Generation TV series that they weren't able to do in the original one, which opened them up to greater possibilities. But then at the same time, they were still under budget constraints for each episode. So you had situations where, I can't remember the title of the episode, but it basically ends with a standoff of the Enterprise against, I believe it was the Romulans. So there's I think 3 Romulan warbirds, or is it? Yeah, warbirds. And they show up and they say, "You won't survive our attack." And then all of a sudden, some Klingon warships decloak and they said, "And you certainly won't." Picard goes, "You certainly won't survive ours." And then they just end up, they fuck off. And it was a really cool standoff. But with a bigger budget, you might have even been able to argue that they would have written it differently and they would have had that battle and you would have played it out and see where that goes. But at the same time, this now brings me back to my point of, you've got the science fiction aspect. It's not all about ass kicking. It's not Star Wars. It's not galactic battles. It's about where we would actually be.
It's more grounded.
Yeah.
That's what the because of the time differential, because of the time differential, and it came after Kirk's Wild West escapades, they've moved it into the future somewhat. And so now, this is why Picard is the perfect man for the job. Because like Chris said, he's more of a diplomat, and it's not just all about shooting. And there's more boundaries and restrictions and literal borders. You know what I mean? Like, don't go into the Romulan zone and like the neutral zone and blah blah blah. And one other thing I wanted to mention too is Chris had a good point about the budget of the show. That was a sort of a early '90s thing where it was one of the ones where they upped the ante of the show, and they were spending more money on special effects. This is before the Friends cast was all getting $1 million an episode, right? It was way before that. And so,
and it was also a Fox creation, wasn't it? So they were notoriously cheaper than the other networks at funding their shows.
Probably makes sense. But what I'm saying is, it was one of those things where people started to see that if you put a little bit more budget into a TV show, then you could get an audience from that. And I think that led to things like the movie style productions that we started getting from The Sopranos or The Wire, and then moving into the whole Netflix series. I guess.
Yeah, that was the whole evolution of you can look at those shows for sure.
But Star Trek was part of that, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. Is they were part of that, and it could have been anybody, but it was time and place, right? Like it could have been any show that helped that along.
It wasn't Baywatch,
right?
No.
Yeah, because then you.
I can give you 2 big reasons why it was.
Are they silicone reasons?
It's irrelevant. That is irrelevant.
Yeah, the old I don't care where you got them as long as you brought them mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we've rambled.
We had a good wrap up. We'll see you all next week. Anything you want to leave us hanging with, Hank?
Hanging with Hank,
right?
Big Funky.
That's a
read comic. I'm currently making my comic. I love comics. This is a good podcast.
Yeah, what are you drawing
show
today?
us.
I was gonna
show us. Yeah,
I'll show you next week. I'll send you a picture. Maybe Chris can get it in his camera. And
all right.
Yeah, it's all pencil right now. If I showed you, it wouldn't pick up anyway. You'd think I was just lying.
Blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
Camera Chris, anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, for the record, Hank is not a technical kind of person. He's very rudimentary, as he likes to call himself. He's a Luddite. Whereas we have our microphones and cameras, he's got a cell phone. But we appreciate his knowledge and he, as I've often extolled his virtues. He is one of the most well-read people I've ever come across, and that doesn't just mean comic books. So we forgive his shitty quality and angle. Don't cry. It'll be okay.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
I'm literally sitting at my drawing board here. That's my
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. I've been sketching here as we've been talking.
I might have to mail you a second camera so you have an alternate angle so we can see what you're drawing while you're talking.
Well, that'd be neat.
I live in Asia. I could probably get one around here pretty cheap.
You could, but you never will.
I know. This is like an electronics store right up the corner here.
Next week is gonna have the whole nines.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
Like, I figured it out, guys. Here we go.
FX backgrounds, all green screen.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Math and technology are his kryptonite.
Unreal. Unreal. All right. Till next week.
Right, boys. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you soon.